Is that the end? Oh my god. Okay, we did it. Yeah, sorry. Alright, we did it. Okay. Alright, whatever. First things first, the bottom center of the screen says that we have beaten 35 games in 2024 and 482 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are now lies. We've now beaten 36 games in 2024 and 483 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go! Alright, yes, I have thoughts. Let's start with the good. This game is fairly unique. It's not entirely unique, but there aren't a lot of games quite like this, where there is some combat, there is some traversal stuff, but most of the focus is on the deduction stuff, the investigation stuff, going to a crime scene and sussing out what happened there and piecing together the information that and once you do that, then it'll tell you where to go next. That's the basic flow of this game, and on the way sometimes you'll fight some enemies and blah blah blah. But the focus is not on the combat. There's like one boss fight in the whole freaking game, it seems like. It's not a combat heavy game. That's not quite right, but there's not a ton of boss fights with big health bars going across the screen. It's nothing like that. But the deduction stuff and the investigation stuff is the best part of this game. That is definitely the meat and potatoes of this game, and it is fun. It is fun and it is satisfying to piece something together and it click in a way where it's like, okay, now I know where to go next. I know what this means, and we can move the story forward. The combat felt appropriate in that it was really clunky, but in kind of like a Silent Hill way, where it was like kind of made sense that it was kind of clunky, like it was designed to be that way. You know, a lot of survival horror games do that. That was fine. That I feel like that kind of added to it, because it's not like you're some kind of a Leon Kennedy badass, you know. There were I think the story was quite good. The investigation stuff played into all that, but just unfolding what the story was pretty interesting. It was very, very Lovecraft, like libel, or not libel, but like plagiaristically Lovecraft. Although that's probably public domain by now. I mean, it's very, very like ripped out of Lovecraft. It's the fact that they're not saying it's, I guess it says Lovecraft in the title thing up there. So it's very Lovecraftian. It's all about tentacle monsters and old ancient gods and drowned cities and yada yada yada. And so if you like that kind of game, if you played like the original Xbox Call of Cthulhu, it feels a lot like that. It's a lot like that. It's got kind of that retro kind of feel to it too, except there's a lot more like sleuthing involved. So this game has some good things going for it. Also the map and the UI was interesting in that the map was a big part of figuring things out. Like you could, once you got a clue, you could pin it to your HUD, and then you could different kinds of clues where you could put on the map and it would tell you things if you put it the right, like on the map. And like it was, you needed to use the map. It was part of it, and that was unique, and I hadn't quite seen anything like that before. Not exactly anyway, so that was cool. So this game did have some interesting things about it, to the point that I'm glad that I played it. It was certainly worth the $7.50 that I bought it on sale for. The downsides. Let's talk about the biggest one. This game it's not just buggy. Like, it is buggy. It's very buggy. I got caught in the environment a few times. There were not crashes, but there would be places where I would get stuck and I'd have to restart. But beyond that, the game is barely holding itself together. Like, the texture pop-in is some of the worst I've ever seen. Maybe the worst I've ever seen on the 8th generation of consoles. Like, I'm playing this on the PS4, so the experience might be better on a PS5, but it doesn't have a PS5 version. The texture pop-in was horrible. It was really bad. Like, stuff would look horrible, and then you get right next to it, and after a minute, couple of seconds, then it might pop in and look a little bit better. It never looks great. The graphics are straight up PS3 level graphics. There's a couple of little things that maybe look a little bit better. Honestly, this title screen is the best looking thing in the whole goddamn game. It's not a good looking game. It's got some character to it, but technically it is poor. Yeah, the texture pop-in's really bad. The load times are horrible. I assume that would be better on the PS5, but the load times are horrible. And there were just load times that were if you just went to the map, like it might take sometimes 3 seconds for the map to pop up. Like you're just sitting there on a blank screen, just waiting. Like that stuff was rough. And there was just like some really sloppy oversights from the development team. Like when you get in and out of a boat, it doesn't show you getting in and out of the boat. You walk up to the boat and then you hit the button and you're suddenly just in the boat. Like they didn't bother to animate the transition of walking into and sitting down into the boat. They didn't do that. And then when you get out of the boat, you're just suddenly standing up. It was a lot of that kind of stuff. Very, not lazy, but a lot of corners were cut. You know, maybe, and they probably were on a budget. They were probably on a timeline, you know. Who knows what the situation was behind that. I don't know how many games this company has made before this one. Whatever, like, there are reasons for that, but it's a worthy observation that there was a lot of corners cut like that. And so yeah, technically this game is an absolute mess. Complete mess. We talked about the combat already. I wouldn't call that as a negative because it kind of fit the vibe that the combat wasn't very good, but the combat wasn't very good. Probably the thing that bothered me the most, because the graphics is like whatever. The load times really did bother me, but I can't really fault that entirely for that because that might have been different on the PS5. The number one thing that really bothered me the most is when you have to investigate these scenes, like say you're in a warehouse, you have to click on everything and get the text, the flavor text on it before it would allow you to move forward, which is fine, except that some of the things were like, you wouldn't see the indication that you could interact with it unless you were staring right at it this far away. Like, if you're looking here, it's not going to show. If you're looking here, it's not going to show. If you're looking here, it's not going to show. If you're this far away instead of this far away, you're not going to see it. Like, it was very finicky as far as, and so I would just miss stuff. And then it would end up, I had to interact with some cabinet or something. And it was a cabinet I passed 10 times, passing the cabinet, look right at the cabinet, hitting X, trying to interact with the cabinet. It's not like I forgot to interact with the cabinet. There was but because my face was, it's one of two things. Either my face should have been here instead of here, or the game's just straight up glitchy as hell, and it could have just not had the indicator. That happened. I can confirm that happened several times. So it was probably both. So that really bugged me. And so I just go around just hitting X on absolutely everything. And there would be stupid things where it's like, okay, you pick up a book and you have to interact with the book. You have to click on the little eyeball on the book and then it'll tell you something. But what you don't know is that you have to also turn the book around and click on the other side too. There were many items that you pick up that you had to click on multiple things on the item. Very easy to miss, very difficult, not intuitive, very difficult to intuitively understand. Lots of wasted time. It's like, I picked this poker up already. You're telling me I have to interact with the handle and the tip? Give me a fucking break. That was rough. That was probably the worst part, and it wasted a ton of time. The voice acting was decent, except for the main character. That happens a lot, it seems like. The voice acting was quite good, I thought, except the main character was real bad. Well, there was something I played recently that was like that. Anyway, I did not like the main... I grew to get used to him after a while, but like there's just some of his delivery that's like, time to figure this out. Very like low budget voice actory kind of stuff. So I did not like the main voice actor. And these guys didn't have any... I don't know where this development team is from, but the voice actors did not have the excuse that they often have where it's like English obviously isn't their first language or something. Like I've played some of those. That's not what this was. This was just bad voice acting. So that was rough. Other than that, I mean, the only other complaint that I'll throw out there is I can't get the sentence out. Is the game's a little too long for what it is. How long to beat time on this is 19 hours. I'm not sure it took me quite that long, but it probably took me close to 16. That's a little bit too long for something that's not very combat heavy and is very just investigation driven. Now, to be fair, it is an open world game, and there's lots of side quests available, and I didn't do any. I didn't really enjoy this game enough that I was interested in doing any of the side quests. And there's not really much of a point, because on normal difficulty, I never really hit a point where I was like really struggling. There was one time at the very beginning that I interacted with an optional boss accidentally that I was not ready for, that was very early in the game, and it's something you wouldn't have seen normally until much later. And I got stuck there. I had to reload an earlier save because I interacted with something that triggered it or whatever, and that I died 5 or 6 times until I figured out I could reload a previous save. But that was obviously, that's a different situation. As far as the main storyline, there's nothing in this game that's particularly difficult. The game gives you plenty of ammo and health and craftables to make ammo and health pretty much constantly. In fact, that was another critique maybe, is that you would very often come up to a briefcase or a trunk or something that you know that you can get stuff out of, and it would give you everything you could possibly get. I'm not kidding. If your quantity, you can carry up to 12 revolver ammo, 18 pistol ammo, 8 shotgun shells, 5 rifle, whatever. It would give you all of it. And you can have up to 25 craftable resources. It would give you all of that. Like, literally, you click on that one box, and it would completely fill your inventory. So there was no... And that happened over and over again. So there was no issue with... And if you needed more, you could just go back. There was no issue with ammo, with inventory management. It was a non-issue. There were a few times that I started to get a little bit low on ammo, particularly toward the end, but it was really only because I was too lazy to go back to one of those places and get more. I knew I had enough, so I just kept going. And it didn't usually matter anyway, because there aren't that many things that you have to fight in this game. There is combat, and there's a lot more optional combat. Like, there's like infested areas that you can clear out for extra XP, but it's really not necessary. I did the bare minimum in this game, and I got 2/3 of the skill points, and the third that was left was the stuff that was the least important. So I got everything that I needed from the main story. So there's a little bit of an issue there. It's like, well, why would I what do I get for doing all this stuff? Because you're giving me all the items already, and the XP isn't that important because it's just for skill points. It doesn't increase your max health automatically. You have skill points for that, but it's not like gaining a level does anything other than give you a skill point. That's all it does. So there's really no point in grinding in this game, and so unless you're just having a good enough time with it, you're not going to go out and do all these side missions. And there were a bunch of side missions that I could have done, but I'm not going to go out and do them because why would I? I'm not having enough fun with this game to do anything but the bare minimum, really. In summary, the game is valuable to the gaming community because it fills a niche that modern games, there's a lot of older games like this, but there's not a lot of modern games that have this investigation thing. Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden did, and it was awesome, but it also had a lot of other awesome stuff. This game's really all about the investigation, and so it's good that that exists, because there are people that like that specific type of game, and this is a game they can play, and there's a sequel coming out, so it must have done well enough. I'm actually a little surprised to find that this, after playing this, that it has a sequel coming out, because I haven't read any reviews or whatever, but like, it's not that good of a game. The game's okay at best. But it must have done well enough to make money, because they're making a sequel. And the sequel looks significantly better, like graphically, and so I don't know if they've changed anything. So I'm excited to figure out about that. I don't think that's going to come out till next year, but we'll see. Anyway, if you like Cthulhu lore and stuff, there is something here for you. It gets really deep into the Cthulhu type lore. There's a lot of that going on. It's really all about the story and the investigation. So if you like that type of Lovecraftian story and detective mode kind of stuff, there is something for you here. And you probably will enjoy it. Outside of that, probably not worth it. You're definitely not going to get like a Resident Evil style experience out of this. It's not, the combat's not fun enough for that. The traversal, the like level design and stuff like that is not nearly cool enough for any of that stuff. The puzzles there really aren't any puzzles. There is investigations, and those can be a little tricky. But there's not really any puzzles. So you're not going to get any of that. But it was okay. It was all right. I'm glad I played it. It was worth $7.50. Maybe even 10. I paid $7.50. I got a good deal. All right, it was 85% off. This game retails for $50. It is not worth $50. All right, that's it. Last order of business, Sinking City. It's been fun, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye. Thank you. Enjoyed you. Appreciate ya.